Los Angeles is steeped in legend and lore. From powerful studios, movie moguls, from megastars to mobsters, murders, and the vanishing. This is starlit Jean Spangler. One evening she waved goodbye to her daughter and vanished into a legendary mystery. "27-year-old Jean Spangler was a glamorous, aspiring actress. The roles she played were small. She was the stereotypical bit actress. Sometimes she faded into the background, and sometimes her scenes ended up on the cutting room floor. Was Jean a rising star? Did she have that something special that would eventually make her a Hollywood icon? Or was she just one of so many that would never achieve the fame that she longed for? We'll never know, because Jean disappeared on October 7, 1949. The mystery of what became of Jean would now become her only claim to fame. This was Jean's apartment at 6216 Colgate Avenue in Los Angeles. She lived here with her 5-year-old daughter, Christine, her mother, Florence, brother, Edward, and sister-in-law, Sophie. World War II had finally reached an end, and families were still caring for each other as lives were being put back together. Jean had divorced her husband, Dexter Benner, in 1946, and the two engaged in a long and bitter custody battle before Jean was granted custody of their daughter, Christine. Throughout all the turmoil, Jean's family stood beside her, offering constant love and support. Of course, there's a lot more to this story. The intimate details of Jean's life that would slowly make their way to the surface after her disappearance. We all wanted to know who this beauty really was and how she vanished without a trace. Let's step through this door and into Jean's life to try and uncover what happened to her. We'll begin with Jean's marriage to Dexter Benner. The relationship was rocky from the start. When Benner entered the Army during World War II, Jean began a romance with an Air Corps officer that everyone referred to as Scotty. That affair led to a divorce from Benner, and her relationship with Lieutenant Scott ended shortly after in 1945, when Scott threatened to harm her if she ever left him. After Jean's disappearance, her attorney stated that as far as he knew, she never saw Scott again. Meanwhile, Jean's legal battles with Benner remained contentious, and once again she found herself in hot water over a second marriage. It seems that during divorce proceedings in 1946, Jean was unaware that the decree wasn't final when she remarried. The second marriage was annulled, and her maiden name of Spangler was restored. As for Benner, he lost primary custody of Christine and was granted visitation rights on alternate weekends. He also was ordered to pay child support. With all the legalities behind her, Jean could focus once again on her career. She landed a bit part in a Kirk Douglas movie called Young Man with a Horn, and this is where the mystery of her disappearance begins. It was no secret that Jean loved men. She was a party girl that frequented clubs and Hollywood night spots, always on the arm of a handsome man. The question then becomes, was Douglas one of those men, or did Jean cross paths with someone that no one else knew about? Through an eyewitness statement given by friend and actor Robert Cummings, we know that Jean entered into a new relationship. While on the set of her last film, The Petty Girl, Cummings said that Jean was happy. She was whistling, singing, and obviously smitten with a new man in her life. Cummings claimed that 1 week before she disappeared, he asked her if the relationship was serious, to which she responded, "No, not really, but I'm having the time of my life." Cummings said that Jean never revealed the man's name. On Friday, October 7th, 1949, Jean's mother Florence was in Kentucky visiting relatives, and Jean felt that this was the perfect opportunity to implement a plan that still remains a mystery today. It was a plan kept so secret that no one close to her knew anything about it. At around 5:30 p.m. that evening, Jean told her sister-in-law, Sophie, that she was due on set for a new film that would keep her away until the early morning hours, and asked if she would take care of Christine until she returned. This was a lie. It was part of Jean's plan. Police would later learn from Spangler's casting bureau that she was not scheduled to work on the 7th. Jean then tells Sophie that before going to work she was meeting with Dexter Benner to pick up a $50 child support payment that he was behind on. Benner would later tell police that he hadn't seen Jean in several months, and his new wife corroborated his alibi. Sophie and Christine walked Jean to the front sidewalk, where Jean gave her daughter a quick kiss goodbye and told her she had to go to work. It was at this point that Jean gives Sophie a conspiratorial wink and moves down the sidewalk, headed for town. The next time Jean is seen is at a market a few blocks down the street at 6 p.m. Witnesses stated that Jean browsed around the store for a short time and was seen pacing near a phone booth as if she were waiting for someone, but no one saw anyone stop to pick her up. The last time Jean is heard from is at 7 p.m. She phoned home to say goodnight to Christine and to let Sophie know that her shift on set would keep her out until 2:30 a.m. or perhaps all night. At this point, it seems clear that Jean is continuing with her charade. But why? Why would she lie to Sophie? What was Jean concealing? There were 2 other strange sightings in the early morning hours of October 8th before Jean was reported missing. The first one is around 2 a.m. Jean is seen with a man at a few nightclubs along Sunset Strip, and the couple appeared to be arguing. Although it was common to see Jean with different men, no one recognized this strange man. The second sighting came at 3 a.m. when a gas station attendant reported to police that he saw a woman crying with a man driving a blue-gray sedan. When the couple pulled away, the woman screamed to him, "Call the police! Get our license number!" The attendant said that the woman looked similar to Jean, but police were never able to confirm the identity of the woman. As the hours ticked by and Jean didn't show up by the evening of the 8th, Sophie knew something was wrong. Jean would never go that long without checking in on Christine. Sophie called police to report Jean missing, but because of Jean's age, police delayed putting out a bulletin, losing crucial hours that may have made a difference in this case. On October 9th, 34 hours after Jean disappeared, her purse was found by Henry Anger, a Griffith Park attendant. Griffith Park is a 4,000-acre municipal park that sits at the eastern end of the Santa Monica Mountains. It's home to the famous Hollywood sign and the Griffith Observatory. Anger said he found the purse and some heavy brush and trees outside the gate on Ferndale. The park attendant claimed that the purse wasn't there when the gate closed at 7:30 p.m. Saturday, October 8th. He said it must have been thrown there between 7:30 p.m. on the 8th and 6:15 a.m. on the 9th when the gate reopened. Over 100 policemen and scores of volunteers searched the natural terrain of the park for the missing actress, but not a trace was found. As far as the police were concerned, the purse had been thrown there to throw them off the track. Now let's take a closer look at Jean's purse and the legendary note found inside. The black purse had its straps ripped off of one of its sides, as if Jean had struggled with someone trying to take it. There was no money found inside, and Sophie confirmed that Jean didn't have any when she left that evening, so robbery was ruled out. This is a picture of the note that was found amongst some other miscellaneous items. It reads, "Kirk, can't wait any longer. Going to see Dr. Scott. It will work best this way while Mother is away." Some say that there is a comma after the word away, as if the note was never finished. If you look at the comma after Kirk, it's a straight line leading right, and the mark after away looks more like the other periods in Jean's sentences. In our opinion, it looks as if the note was finished. Now this is where the case gets interesting. We know that Jean worked with Kirk Douglas on the movie Young Man with a Horn. Jean's mother said she spoke of a Kirk on set, and she remembered a Kirk picking Jean up a few times, but he never came into the apartment. If this man was Kirk Douglas, it would make sense that he was being discreet because he was married at the time. Oddly enough, Jean's girlfriends said they were aware of many of her male acquaintances, but not one of them recalled one named Kirk. Then there was the phone call that Kirk made to police after Jean's disappearance, before they even reached out to question him. Calling from Palm Springs, Douglas told police that he was calling to clear his name. He said he couldn't ever recall meeting the actress and was in Palm Springs when she went missing. On a follow-up call by police, Douglas's story started to change. Suddenly, he remembered Jean. He admitted to briefly talking to her on set and said he just kidded around with her like he did everyone. Douglas denied ever dating her and stated he didn't even remember her name. This is the statement Kirk Douglas released to the press. "I told Detective Chief Thad Brown that I didn't remember the girl or the name until a friend recalled it was she who worked as an extra in the scene with me in my picture Young Man with a Horn. Then I recalled that she was a tall girl in a green dress, and that I talked and kidded with her a bit on the set, as I have done with many other people around on a day of shooting." Chief Brown was satisfied with Douglas's answers and never questioned him again. Although detectives thoroughly searched for another man named Kirk, they never found one. Now let's take a look at the next part of the note that talks about a Dr. Scott. Jean states that she's going to see Dr. Scott while her mother's away, and she can't wait any longer. Why would Jean keep a medical procedure from her mother? Unless, of course, it was about an abortion, which was illegal at the time. Jean's girlfriend stated to police that she was 3 months pregnant and mentioned wanting to get an abortion. These witnesses went on to say that most of them that traveled in Jean's circle knew of an ex-medical student known as Doc. For a certain amount of money, this man would perform secret abortions. Detectives questioned every doctor with a last name Scott and ran down every lead on former medical students that may have been performing not only illegal but dangerous medical procedures. But Dr. Scott proved to be just as elusive as the mysterious Kirk. Before we go on to other possibilities that may have led to Jean's disappearance, there are a few more facets of Jean's note that should be explored. A. Douglas later in life admitted to being a womanizer, a man who cheated on both of his wives. His second wife wrote in a book that she accepted Douglas's infidelity and turned a blind eye to his lovers. Given this statement, it's easy to believe that there may have been more to Kirk Douglas's involvement with Jean than he led police to believe. B. Douglas's career was really beginning to take off during the time of Jean's disappearance. If she were pregnant with his child, could she have been seen as a liability, a scandal that a studio would desperately want to avoid? Could a handler have been sent out to deal with the problem and things spiraled out of control? C. We then have the admission from Natalie Wood's sister Lana about an encounter between Natalie and Douglas when she was just 16 years old in 1955. The story goes that Wood's mother dropped her off at the Chateau Marmont for a meeting with Douglas. It was agreed that the meeting might open some doors that would further Natalie's career. The hotel was a known hangout for celebrities looking to behave in the most shocking ways, while the staff discreetly looked the other way. Lana stated that she and her mother waited in the car for a very long time while Natalie met with Douglas. When Natalie finally reappeared, she was distraught and disheveled. Several years later, Natalie admitted to her sister that Douglas had raped her. After Douglas's death in 2020, his son Michael was asked about Lana's allegations involving his father, and his only statement was, "May they both rest in peace." Clearly, the implications of the assault on Natalie Wood only fanned the flames of Douglas's involvement with Jean's disappearance. Lastly, we would like to address the subject of the name Kirk. Many people who have covered this case have said that the name Kirk was a very common name, and perhaps the focus on Douglas was unjust. So we did some research, and this is what we found. As you can see, in the 1940s, this name was not very common. There would not have been hundreds or thousands of Kirks living in or near Los Angeles at the time of Jean's disappearance. The actual number of those named Kirk would have been relatively small. The next mysterious theory will give us a completely different perspective on what may have been the cause of Jean's disappearance. It involves the Florentine Gardens nightclub, the Black Dahlia murder, and mobsters. Lying at this core of speculation was a club known to cater to the Hollywood elite. The Florentine Gardens was a place where young starlets could be discovered as they danced around in risque costumes. Elizabeth Short, a.k.a. the Black Dahlia, was employed at the club and then later found dismembered in January of 1947. Jean also worked at the gardens to help make ends meet just before she vanished. Take a look at this side-by-side comparison of Jean and Elizabeth. The two bore a striking resemblance. Is it possible that Jean fell victim to the same killer that took Short's life? Before we can even begin to entertain such a theory, we also have to consider the seedier side of the club itself. Many nightclubs were notorious for their relationships with mobsters. As Jean danced her way to help pay the bills at home, was she naively exposing herself to some dangerous gangsters? It was rumored that Jean may have crossed paths with mobster Mickey Cohen at the club and became friends with his henchmen Davy Ogle and Frank Nicoli. Ogle was under indictment for conspiracy and suspiciously disappeared on October 9, 1949, along with Nicoli. On October 10th, a student at the University of California reported to police that she saw Ogle get out of his car and join a man and a woman waiting in another car. Could this woman have been Jean, and was this the same car seen by the gas station attendant on October 8th at 3 a.m.? Did Ogle disclose some information to Jean that put her life at risk? And was she now on the run with him as he tried to avoid prosecution? A customs agent claimed to have seen Ogle with a woman matching Jean's description at a hotel in El Paso, Texas. No further information on this lead was ever found, but it did lead police to question Thomas Ellery Evans. Evans was a friend of Ogle's, and police interrogated him for hours to no avail. Evans was a convicted opium runner and bodyguard of racketeer Tony Cornero, and police believed that there was some sort of connection between Evans and the disappearance of Jean, Ogle, and Nicoli. In April of 1950, Jean's sister Betsy testified that her sister was never acquainted with any mobsters. So the question remains, did Jean become a victim of the Black Dahlia killer, or did she become collateral damage from her possible association with mobsters? Unfortunately, these unanswered questions have now become a part of the Florentine Gardens mystique. We'll close this investigation of Jean's disappearance with one more look at her ex-husband, Dexter Benner. When police questioned Benner after Jean had gone missing, they noticed that he had scratches on his face. Benner claimed that a box of glasses fell on him when he was at his factory. Then there was the fact that Benner had a boat and was an avid sailor. Supposedly, police obtained documentation of Benner taking his boat out on the night that Jean disappeared. Without any direct evidence linking Benner to Jean's disappearance, detectives dropped their pursuit of him and expanded their investigation to include other persons of interest. But Jean's family had not heard the last of Dexter Benner. He wasted no time going back into court to battle his ex-mother-in-law for custody of Christine. Florence Spangler fought desperately to retain custody of her granddaughter, but in the end the judge sided with Benner, giving him custody and allowing Florence to have visitation. Benner was not going to abide by the judge's rule. He did not want Christine to have any contact with Jean's family, even going so far as to insist that the child call his new wife Mommy. When Benner denied Florence visitation, he was ordered to serve 15 days in jail for contempt of court. Benner immediately packed up his new wife and daughter and fled to Florida. He never returned to California, and the battle for Christine quickly faded. The Spangler family has stated that Christine never once reached out to her grandmother over the years. The grieving family not only lost Jean, but Christine as well. During our research, we found that this is where Jean Spangler's case stands today. No case file remains. A murder report was never filed. It was always classified as a suspicious missing person case. Because of that classification, any existing evidence, such as Jean's purse and the note, were discarded at some point. Only photographs remain of those items today. Where is the solution to this puzzling disappearance? What happened to Jean Spangler? Did Jean become a liability to a Hollywood studio and its budding superstar? Was this about a custody battle gone awry? Was Jean's disappearance somehow linked to the Black Dahlia murder? Was Jean forced to go on the run with gangsters who thought she knew too much? Or did the mysterious Dr. Scott perform a botched abortion that took Jean's life? This is Jean Spangler. If you have any information about her disappearance, please contact the Los Angeles Police Department at 213-486-1000. Are you obsessed with true crime content? Subscribe now and join our growing community as we analyze and discuss the details of some truly baffling cold cases. Browse our growing library of cold case investigations and immerse yourself in the mysteries that keep us up at night. Subscribe and join the EOJ community today. All it takes is a click.